Oxford, 1923. A frostbit January has wrapped its icy fingers around the Gothic spires of St. Albans College. The kind of night where the silence is so deep, it feels like the whole city is holding its breath. And on this particular night, in the ancient college chapel, that silence was broken by the discovery of something truly unthinkable. The choir director, Alastair Finch, was found dead. But this wasn't just any death. It was a macabre spectacle. Finch was crucified on a large wooden cross, a sprig of mistletoe placed deliberately on his chest. His face was a frozen mask of pure, undiluted terror. And surrounding him, like statues in a grotesque play, stood the 12 members of his choir, their hands clasped in prayer, their bodies rigid, as if they were part of some ghastly, silent ritual. I'm Inspector Sebastian Morse, and the call came in just as the clock struck midnight. The scene was unsettling, to say the least. The local constables were ready to write it off as a heart attack, maybe induced by a cruel, elaborate prank. But my gut, and the evidence, told me this was far from a simple prank. It was murder. The first clue was the smell. A faint, bitter scent of almonds on Finch's lips. The unmistakable calling card of cyanide. And then there was the mistletoe. Not the festive kind you hang in a doorway, but something more symbolic. The ancient Druids revered it, saw it as a plant of life and fertility. Here, it felt like an omen, a key part of some sinister ceremony. This wasn't just a crime scene. It was a stage, and every detail was a prop with a story to tell. The 12 silent choristers, the cross, the poison, the mistletoe. It was all too deliberate, too theatrical. My investigation had just begun, and I knew I was descending into a world of secrets buried deep within the hallowed stone walls of Oxford. My first port of call was to understand the man at the center of this grim tableau, Alastair Finch. On the surface, he was a respected, if somewhat severe, choir director. But digging deeper revealed a far more complex and secretive individual. Finch, it turned out, was the last scion of a renowned family of alchemists. This wasn't just a historical footnote. It seemed to be a living, breathing part of his identity. In his office, tucked away behind a row of dusty sheet music, I found an ancient, leather-bound diary. But it wasn't written in plain English. The pages were filled with musical stanzas. It wasn't a composition, it was a cipher. The notes weren't melodies. They were letters, a complex code of Finch's own devising. It took several painstaking days with the help of a musicologist to crack it. And when we did, the contents were staggering. Finch had been methodically, almost obsessively, collecting compromising information on every single member of his choir. It was a ledger of secrets, a symphony of blackmail. Each chorister, who stood frozen in that chapel, had a motive. Eleanor Vance, the choir's star soprano with a voice like an angel, was hiding a secret that could ruin her family's reputation. She was the illegitimate daughter of the powerful Earl of Winterton. Arthur Blythe, the brilliant but tortured organist, suffered from a severe form of epilepsy, a condition he kept hidden at all costs, fearing it would end his career. And Reverend Crowe, the man of God, had a past that was anything but holy. In a previous life as a doctor, his negligence had led to a patient's death. Each secret was a thread, and Finch held them all, twisting them, pulling them. He wasn't just their choir director, he was their puppet master. The 12 choristers weren't just suspects, they were victims of his psychological torment. Each one of them had a powerful reason to want Alastair Finch dead. The question was no longer just who killed him, but how had they managed to orchestrate such a bizarre and unified act of vengeance? Or was it something else entirely? The mystery was deepening, and the choir's silence was becoming more and more deafening. With a choir full of motives, I turned my attention back to the chapel itself. The initial search had been thorough, but I had a nagging feeling we'd missed something. These old college buildings are a maze of forgotten corners and hidden histories. I started tapping the stone walls, listening for the hollow echo of a hidden space. And behind the grand organ, concealed by a heavy tapestry depicting a biblical scene, I found it. A small, almost invisible seam in the stonework. A hidden passage. The passage led down a tight, spiral staircase, the air growing colder and damper with every step. It opened into a basement, a secret chamber that was not on any of the college blueprints. And there, my jaw dropped. It wasn't a wine cellar or a storage room. It was an alchemical laboratory. Retorts, beakers, and alembics lined the shelves, catching the beam of my torchlight. Strange powders and tinctures were organized with meticulous care. This was Finch's real sanctuary. This was where the choir director became the alchemist. Amidst the strange apparatus, on a heavy oak desk, lay another diary. This one was his personal journal, written in plain, frantic script. The final entry sent a chill down my spine. It read, "They found out about the ritual. The choir has become a threat. I must act faster." What ritual? Was he planning something, or reacting to something they were? Was he the hunter, or the hunted? The lab provided another crucial piece of the puzzle: the poison. Analysis confirmed that the cyanide had been mixed into the communion wine. But here's the twist that changed everything. A detailed forensic analysis of the communion chalice revealed that the poison was mixed into the bulk of the wine. There were traces of cyanide on only one specific spot on the rim of the chalice, the exact spot where Finch's lips would have touched as he drank. This meant the poison was applied to the cup at the last second, just before he consumed it. This completely upended my theory. It would be nearly impossible for one of the choristers to apply poison to a specific part of the chalice, right under Finch's nose, without being seen. So how did it get there? Could Finch have done it himself? The final entry in his diary echoed in my mind. The choir has become a threat. I must act faster. Was this his desperate, final act? The solution was as elegant as it was horrifying, and it came to me while observing the organist, Arthur Blythe. During a follow-up interview, he had a mild epileptic seizure. His hands trembled, his fingers twitching uncontrollably, and then it all clicked into place. The poison wasn't on the chalice at all. I returned to the lab and focused on Finch's alchemical experiments. He wasn't just a blackmailer. He was a manipulator of chemistry. I found notes on a compound that was stable in liquid form but became a potent cyanide gas when subjected to a specific, high-frequency sound wave. The final piece was the organ. Arthur Blythe, the brilliant organist, had been blackmailed by Finch over his epilepsy. Finch had forced him to play a specific, complex chord during the service, a chord that contained the exact frequency needed to activate the poison. Here's what happened. Finch, paranoid that his choir was plotting against him, devised a plan to eliminate them all during a ritual. He laced the communion wine with his special chemical compound. His plan was to have Blythe play the activating chord, filling the chapel with poison gas, killing the 12 choristers while he, presumably, had an antidote. He would be the sole survivor of a tragic accident. But he underestimated them. The choir, united by their shared hatred of Finch, had discovered his plan. They knew about the poison in the wine. So, they hatched a counterplan. Just before the service, Eleanor Vance, the soprano, approached Finch. Using her charm, she accidentally smudged his lip. But it wasn't dirt. On her finger was a potent, fast-acting contact poison. Finch, oblivious, began the service. He drank from the chalice first, as was tradition. The poison on his lip entered his system instantly. As the toxin took hold, terror flooded his face. He stumbled back, crashing against the wooden cross that was part of his own twisted stage. In his death throes, he knocked it over, crucifying himself in a final, ironic act. Arthur Blythe, seeing his tormentor fall, never played the fatal chord. The choir stood frozen, not in ritualistic prayer, but in the shocked silence of their own victory. They hadn't murdered him. They had simply created the conditions for him to destroy himself. The silent choir was silent no more. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the dark heart of Oxford. It's stories like these that remind us that the most intricate puzzles often have the most unexpected solutions. If you enjoyed this mystery, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next investigation. Until next time, stay curious. The witness statements were a mess, a jumble of contradictions that made my head spin. One group swore they heard Gregorian chants drifting from the chapel the night before the murder, a haunting, ancient sound that had no place in modern Oxford. Another group spoke of strange, flitting shadows moving against the stained glass windows, like phantoms dancing in the moonlight. It was all very Gothic, very dramatic, but none of it felt like solid evidence. That is, until the toxicology report landed on my desk. The poison was cyanide, but not your run-of-the-mill, lab-grade stuff. The analysis showed it had been extracted from apricot kernels. And not just extracted, but refined using a very specific, archaic method. a method known only to a select few, those initiated into the obscure and forgotten art of alchemy. Suddenly, the strange shadows and ancient chants didn't seem so far-fetched. This wasn't just a murder. It was something far older, far stranger. My investigation into a simple death had just taken a sharp turn into the world of forgotten rituals and secret knowledge. Slowly, painstakingly, the fractured pieces of the puzzle began to click into place. The victim, Alastair Finch, the notoriously demanding choir director, wasn't just a musician. He was a man obsessed, a man chasing a myth. He had been trying to recreate an ancient alchemical ritual, one that promised the ultimate prize, immortality. And the choir, his 12 disciples of song, had somehow stumbled upon his secret. This wasn't just about music anymore. It was about life, death, and a forbidden ambition that had spiraled out of control. Each chorister, I discovered, had their own story, their own cross to bear under Finch's tyrannical rule. He held secrets over them, little bits of leverage he used to manipulate and control their lives. One was hiding a gambling debt, another a scandalous affair. Finch knew it all, and he used their shame to keep them in line, to ensure their voices were perfect for his grand musical ambitions. But this immortality ritual was a step too far. Each of them had a powerful motive to stop him, a desperate need to break free from his web of blackmail. But none of them, I suspected, could have pulled it off alone. The idea of them working together, a conspiracy bound by shared desperation, began to form in my mind. The final confrontation had to happen where it all began. The air in the chapel was thick with the scent of old wood, beeswax, and something else, a faint, lingering tension. I gathered all 12 choristers, their faces pale and drawn in the dim light filtering through the high, arched windows. I laid out the evidence piece by piece, the conflicting testimonies, the shadows, the haunting chants, and the damning toxicology report on the alchemically derived cyanide. I watched their eyes, searching for a flicker of guilt, a crack in their collective composure. I expected denials. I expected outrage, perhaps even tears. But what I got was silence. A profound, unsettling silence that seemed to absorb all the sound in the cavernous space. And then, one by one, they began to sing. It started as a low hum, then swelled into a full-throated, powerful melody. It was the same Gregorian chant, the very one the witnesses had described. The music filled the chapel, echoing off the stone walls, a sound both beautiful and terrifying. It wasn't a confession, not in the traditional sense. It felt more like a statement, a final, unified performance. As the last note faded into the rafters, Eleanor Vance, the lead soprano, stepped forward. Her voice, usually so ethereal in song, was steady and clear. "We didn't kill him," she said, her gaze unwavering. "We merely let him go." The rest of the choir nodded in silent, solemn agreement. The air crackled with the weight of her words. It wasn't a denial. It was a reframing of the entire event, a truth more bizarre than anything I could have concocted. Eleanor continued her incredible story. Finch, in his pursuit of eternal life, had fixated on an old text describing a ritual involving mistletoe in a carefully prepared elixir. He believed he had perfected the formula, the final step in his grand alchemical work. But in his arrogance, in his desperate rush to cheat death, he made a fatal error. He miscalculated the dosage. He wanted to become immortal. Eleanor explained, her voice devoid of emotion. "We were only observers. We watched him prepare it. We watched him drink it." The truth, when it finally unfurled, was more incredible than any fiction I could have imagined. Alastair Finch hadn't been murdered at all. He had been preparing and executing his own suicide ritual, a final, desperate gamble for a life everlasting. The choir, his long-suffering puppets, were simply the audience to his final, fatal performance. But a chilling question immediately surfaced in my mind. Why? Why would 12 people, all with a reason to want him gone, simply stand by and watch him die? The answer was as simple as it was brutal. His death was their liberation. With Finch gone, so were his threats, his blackmail, the invisible chains he had wrapped around each of their lives. By doing nothing, they gained everything. They didn't have to conspire. They didn't have to lift a finger. They just had to watch. It was the perfect, untraceable crime, one where the only action was inaction. The case was officially closed, ruled a suicide brought on by a ritualistic misadventure. The paperwork was filed, the headlines faded. But for me, the questions lingered, echoing in the quiet moments of my day. Was it really suicide? Or had the choir orchestrated the most sophisticated murder in Oxford's long and storied history? Did they subtly manipulate him, feeding his obsession, knowing his arrogance would be his downfall? Did they, perhaps, switch a crucial ingredient or alter a measurement just enough to turn his elixir of life into a poison? They disguised their collective act of vengeance as a ritual, hiding their intent behind a veil of ancient mysticism. There was no evidence, no proof, only their word against the silence of a dead man. Sometimes, late at night, when the city is quiet and the college spires are silhouetted against the moon, I think I can hear it. A faint, distant melody drifting on the wind, seeming to come from the direction of the now-deserted chapel. It's the same Gregorian chant, a ghostly reminder of the 12 singers, their perfect harmony, and the terrible, beautiful secret they share. And I wonder if they ever gather there, in the dark, to sing for their freedom. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of Oxford's most chilling and ambiguous cases. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more tales from the shadows. I'd love to hear your theories in the comments below. Was it suicide or the perfect murder? Let me know what you think. Until next time, stay curious.